he looked at me, he said, remember, Christine, not everybody's going to like you. And I was like, where did that come from? What? I hadn't realized that that is true. But what really matters most is every chair serves a certain amount of people, right? And sometimes that chair is going to attract somebody that is not going to want to be in my group. So I'm high energy and I'm structured and all those things. That's okay.
Welcome to Confessions of a Vistage Chair. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. We have real, behind-the-scenes conversations with Vistage Chairs who share honest stories and practical insights on leadership growth, peer advisory groups, and what actually happens in Vistage meetings. Let's pull back the curtain. Sweet. Okay. Christine, I am so excited about this. This is, you and I have been going back and forth, LinkedIn and text messages, everything else for like the last 9 months. So super excited to have you here and welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. It's really exciting to be here with you too. I know we've been trying to get this scheduled for a long time, and I'm so passionate and so busy what I do because I love what I do so much. So it's been hard to find time for you. So sorry about that, but I'm excited to share with you what my world is made of and why I do what I do.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's going to be well worth the wait. So that's incredible. Let's start off with this because I'm going to start off with like a general question because I don't know anybody else like this, and you can either confirm or deny this. How many expert EOS implementers? And by the way, this recording could go on either of my podcasts. How many expert implementers are also master chairs for Vistage? How many in the ecosystem like that?
I don't know that there are any, but I don't compare myself to anyone else either, but I don't think there is a master chair top, 3, top 5 in the US for expert level as well. But I do believe we're supposed to be the best at everything we can. Our mother said to do the best we can. And so that's just how I ended up both those lists.
I love it. And for the record, I have found 0. And so like, this is going to be great. And it's going to be great for so many reasons because number one, EOS and Vistage changed my life. And we can get into that at a later point. But there's just this, they are two different things, and they both serve a very specific purpose that helps both the individual and the business align and think and all those other things. So let's talk about this. You are like the top in both of these ecosystems. Like where did this come from? Like, is this something early on in life you're like, I'm just, whatever I do, I'm going to be the best? Like where did this all start for you?
Wow. It's a humble question, and it gives me goosebumps from head to toe, and I'm a little modest to answer, but I will. So I will say it really comes from who we all are in our hearts, right, in our heads. And unfortunately, my father died before I was born. And so, I started working when I was 12, selling stationery door to door, started working for a real job when I was 14. And through high school, I actually left school. I think they still have this program out there. I hope they do for those less fortunate, that you leave school at noon and I would go to a job, through high school. So I just worked my way through. And then the biggest thing, it was the biggest difference in doing that part of my education when I was young, is we weren't allowed to watch TV and we didn't have a lot of money. But I found out about this cassette tape. I think it's on an MP3 now. But this cassette tape called Where There's a Will, There's an A. And I saved all my money and I bought this cassette tape, and it really taught you that if you make really good grades, you can be anything you want, do anything you want in your life. And so that's how I got my impetus to really study hard. And then I learned, because I was in all these sports, I was in all kinds of sports, and also student council and choir, fellowship of Christian athletes. I was in all these things in high school, still in lots of stuff. But I learned that you're rewarded not only for great grades, you're rewarded for sports. So of course I have a mother that raised me well, that you give your best at everything you do, right? That's all you can ask, is you give your best. And so by learning to make good grades and to learn to, when you work to give it your best, you're rewarded accordingly, that you can do anything you want to. So I had no limitations. Even though I came from a background that said I probably was not going to be very successful. I was the only one in my family to go to college. et cetera, et cetera. So it was this impetus and resilience and survival. And it was also this passion that nobody's going to do it for you. And in fact, I always tell people, if I can do what I have done, anybody can do anything. It's not about where we came from or who our parents are or what side of the track we're born on. It's really up to us. And that's really where the drive and the passion comes from. And I do believe in the Father that counts, that he helps those who help themselves. I also believe that everything happens for a reason. And we have control over our outcomes, our decisions, and the destiny of what we create. And we're only given one life. So let's make the most of it.
I love that. And we do a lot of sales recruiting, and I will tell you, one of the biggest indicators of successful salespeople is the competitive nature, sports background, things like that, like being able to excel in these dynamic environments. Do you think that this is something, like, was this something that was always inside of you, and the adversity kind of brought those things out? Or do you think going through that adversity and building that resilience is what kind of shaped your character and shaped your ambition?
I believe it was both. I believe it was inside me because of survival. I worried about living on the street. And unfortunately, that's still part of what's inside me, even though I shouldn't worry about it. And I try not to worry about it, but I worried about living on the street. I worried about having food. I didn't have a jacket. I didn't have a coat. Now I probably have 20. But my point is I didn't have those things. So it was literally survival. But the other thing is that I learned from that one cassette tape I bought where there's a will, there's an A. I started buying other books and other things. And these days we call them self-help books, right? And in fact, that's how I knew my husband was the right man for me, because we had the same books in our library. Like, you get me, I get you. So, but I just started reading all these other books that we consider self-help books, and reading from the best of the best, from business consultants to speakers, authors, going to, even going to Christopher Reeves was alive. And I went to one of his seminars or workshops where he had multiple speakers that day. And I remember listening to Christopher Reeves. Somebody asked him from the audience, do you ever think about what if that accident hadn't happened and where you'd be today? And he looked everybody in the face with love and conviction and no fear, and said, I don't play the what if game. I'm where I am because of where I am, and I make the most of where I am, is basically his short answer. And so through the self-help books and other great speakers and leaders, yes, I had to do it from a survival perspective, right? But I also just continued to learn and grow. And I believe because of if you always learn, like Warren Buffett says, right? If you're always learning, you're always growing. I believe it's like church. You're going forward or backwards. There's no middle ground, right? Yeah. So
interesting. I was actually, like, as you were talking about this, I was curious if there was kind of like one thing. You've learned a lot through all the books and all the cassette tapes. By the way, my dad, I remember those self-help cassettes, like it came in a folder, and you would open it up and there would be like 8 cassettes on both sides.
I still have them.
Do you still have a cassette player too? I mean, that would
do. And I still have a CD player, because there's certain things you can only play on those because they're so powerful.
That's awesome. And I was going to go down this path of, like, is there one thing, like, you've learned a lot and you've explored a lot of different things and you're a continuous learner. You might have already kind of alluded to this, but is there one thing that, like, you really latched onto that you've carried with you at every phase through life?
Yeah, there's something else that added to everything I've shared so far. That was probably the one thing. I knew that if I was going to go to college, if it's up to me, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. I just learned that. And I was blessed enough through lots of doctors that I worked for that I ended up like house sitting and pet sitting and pool sitting and all these things for multiple people that were successful. They gave me extra income. It also gave me a place to stay. And no rent in exchange for taking care of all that. But when I started asking them questions and how they became successful and what their recommendations were, I realized that we don't have to do it alone. And it was the light bulb that went off for me. Besides me reading all the self-help books and training hard and working hard and just putting the grit in that it takes, or making sacrifices, that you can surround yourself by other people that have been there, done that. And they may not have came from the same walk of life or background I did, but we can all share in those best practices. And so I just started interviewing and asking other people how they became successful and what they would recommend. And I had so many people that believed in me and that helped me along the way, which is why I love doing it for so many other people. And I truly believe we're here to serve others. And so those two things of in this world, helping other people and other people helping me, and knowing that I believe in him, the one above, that he's there for us no matter what, that we don't have to do this alone. And so even through the toughest times, there's always somebody there to lean on and to learn from and to grow from if you're willing to put in the time and the effort.
Interesting. And like when I think about Vistage, when I think about some of my first company went bankrupt, and I think the only reason that the first company is relative, first company is in like first company that actually achieved scale. Next company we did okay, and like I attribute that all to Vistage and EOS, and being able to find a group of peers that have been there, done that, asking good questions.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is like you didn't jump right into entrepreneurship or coaching. Like you jumped into, it looks like, sales and marketing and some other areas. And one thing that I see too often is like having that same translation of like asking questions, finding a mentor. It doesn't always translate to people that are actually like grinding inside of the business.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that either you did or those organizations had to like set you up to create that collaborative environment where you could lean on others for that journey?
Yeah, great question. Several great questions there. So the first thing is that going back to that, I didn't do this alone. There was always a leadership opportunity. And one thing that I did do is I put myself out there. And when I was in corporate America, I signed up for everything that I could possibly sign up for when it came. If they needed somebody to help with the holiday party, I'll help out. They needed somebody to sit in the leadership team, I'll be happy to help that, even though I'd never been a leader. They needed somebody to open the office early, I would open the office early. Like whatever it was, I put myself in those situations. And quite frankly, if I think back, even way back when I was in Campfire Girls, I think it was like Girl Scouts, Campfire Girls. I was the one that was always stepping up and orchestrating and leading the teams, and we put on skits, and I was the news anchor, like, and then I'd have my cast of news, people that would do their parts on sports and stuff. Like I was always the one stepping up to lead. I wasn't afraid of that. Now inside, I was nervous as heck, right? And Lord knows when I first started doing public speaking, and I did Toastmasters, I joined the National Speakers Association. I said a million times. I had feedback and criticism. I got red, but I stepped up and put myself in uncomfortable situations because of that. And I continued to learn and challenge myself and grow. So because of that, those leadership opportunities are what helped me. I also, on my own as a manager, I put myself through Coach University's 2-year coaching program just to be a better manager on my own dime and own time. I took 3 courses at night for 2 to 3 hours a night for 3 nights a week for 2 years, even after I finished my 8 years of college, just so I could be a better manager and leader. So I'm just saying I leaned in and thought, number one, there's people there to help you if you ask for it, right? And that's kind of what helped me get into Vistage. You're right. I didn't even know about Vistage initially. It wasn't until I was asked to speak to a CEO group. But finding those leadership opportunities and volunteering, whether it's president of your HOA or your PTA or, school, something for kids or whatever it may be, those leadership opportunities challenged me and put me in situations where it helped me grow as a leader, helped me also continue to connect and meet the right people. And none of it was by chance. It was all by putting myself out there and learning and growing and realizing I don't have all the answers. I never will have all the answers. I don't have all the answers for all the CEOs I serve. I have a lot of information. I'm happy to share whatever I have, though.
Yeah. I love that. And like you talked about this, I wrote down a note as you were talking, and I wrote brave. And before I could even get to it, you came in and you were like, it doesn't mean that on the inside I wasn't like nervous or having the same kind of emotional reactions. I mean, we're human at the end of the day. Like how did you overcome that? Were there like mental tricks that you used to like, or were you just like, if I put my back against the wall and like like the momentum is just going to carry me wherever I go, and I'm going to figure out a way through. Like, did you have some tips and tricks to like overcome those fears and anxieties?
Yeah, thank you. You're very kind for your kind words. You do have to push yourself and you have to be uncomfortable. But I remember I realized that being a public speaker was really going to help put me on the map, so to speak, or at least get me in front of more people, right? I'm more well known. And I set the goal first. The goal when I started my business, I'll just give you this example. We could go to multiple directions of the hats I've worn in corporate America too. But let's say when I started my first business, because I started the second business, I sold it already. But my goal was to be the most sought after business growth consultant and motivational speaker in the nation. That's pretty bold, right? And I was already speaking nationally. And I was also really loved it, making a difference, I hope and pray, and making good money at it. But I wanted to be really well known, and I wanted to reach more people and serve more people at the end of the day. So I recognize that we all have to continue to learn and grow and hone our skills. And I remember one of the many things I did, I mentioned Toastmasters a little while ago. I still recommend Toastmasters. I visited multiple Toastmasters groups to find the one that was right for me. And I tell people this all the time. I never found one that was, quote, perfect for me, because I was looking for one that was more professional services and more maybe white collar, for lack of a better word. And all the ones I found were like lots of diverse people from blue collar, industrial, you name it. And so I finally just decided, okay, I'm just going to sign up for 6 months. I'm going to go every week, because it's the process they teach you that matters. It doesn't matter who's in the room, because they're counting how many times you say, regardless if it's somebody that's from this industry or that industry. The process works. So trust the process. And so I still to this day recommend that. And then I signed up with the National Speakers Association. And so when I signed up for the National Speakers Association, which is an expensive membership, and their conferences are expensive, but they're so worth it. And I learned so much from that. I never stopped learning. I may 1 month I may read or listen to 2 books, or maybe 20 books. So always honing your skills, and then always asking people in the audience, because usually somebody, whether it's the person that booked you or whether it's the client that's in the room or whoever it is, for feedback every single time. What could I have done better? What, did I miss? What worked, what didn't work, and what, how can I continue to hone my skills and get better? And of course, making sure you know who your audience is, right? In any situation, whether you're speaking or whether you're in a room, as you know, because you're a business owner, who's your audience and what's their goal, right?
We hear this idea of like feedback and reflection all the time. And very rarely do people talk about like, how did they actually apply it? Or like tactically, what did they do with that information that they received? Even like 360 interviews. Hey, be a better manager, like do this, don't do this. When you receive that type of feedback, like, do you go through and process it mentally and think through the next thing? Do you immediately look at your I don't know if you had a script or not, but your speaker script, and like start putting marginal notes in it? Like, how did you apply that feedback?
That's a loaded question. I should say, first of all, I was always made sure I was well prepared. Like the information, I have the information prepared, the presentation, the PowerPoint or the flip chart or whatever it is I'm speaking, right? The last thing I would do, I'm going to say this first and I'll answer the rest of it. The last thing, and I still do this to this day, I go to the bathroom, whatever bathroom building I'm in, and I say a prayer. It's like, God, you got this. Please help them help me deliver great value, and they all walk out the door that made a difference and information they can really utilize and impact. So that's what grounds me once I've done all the homework. And then when it comes to actually putting some of those things in place, I literally would put breathe, stop, slow, right? Breathe, stop, slow, because I talk really fast. And so and if I could give some of those coaching tips to people still to this day, there's lots of things that I put in place that are still my weaknesses, right? They also can be my strengths, but if your strengths are overused or abused, they still, sabotage you, right? So there's just things that I took and actually, I learned, if you want to give, well, let's face it. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're signed up and you were supposed to speak for an hour, and you get there because their agenda's changed. You now have 15 minutes. Well, we just have to know what are those top things you can give them in 15 minutes. So I've just learned to have a plan B, right? plan on plan A, but have a plan B, because you always need to be adaptable and modify. And did I take things personal? Sure, I did. I remember when they interviewed me, 10 interviews to become a chair for Vistage. And I was already a paid speaker and a member of Vistage when they asked me to be a chair, right? But I went through 10 interviews. And the last interview that I went through and I left there, I remember, I won't mention his name. We're still friends to this day. But he looked at me, he said, remember, Christine, not everybody's going to like you. And I was like, where did that come from? What? Like, I was an auditor twice in my career. People don't want to see the auditor. You can tell my personality. I'm going to come in and hug everybody. And you're telling me not everybody's going to love me or like me? What? So I hadn't realized that is true. But what really matters most is every chair serves a certain amount of people, right? And sometimes that chair is going to attract somebody that is not going to want to be in my group. So I'm high energy and I'm structured and all those things. That's okay. Recognize we're not here for everybody and recognize there's plenty of business to go around for everyone. Who am I here to serve is really what I ask myself. That's what it boils down to.
I love that. And to your point, I showed up, I was doing a business competition at the University of Maryland, and showed up and hit the clicker to go to slide 2, did my introduction, hit the clicker, and the clicker didn't work. And I had to go through the whole thing without a presentation, everything else. And I wrote this note to myself, and it says, it was like, always, I'll have to look at it and bring it back up, but it's like, always double check the clicker before you go into the presentation. And like, what that does is it sets my mind. It's not just about the clicker. It's about all the things that can go wrong, and anticipate everything going wrong. Therefore, like, you don't need anything, any script. You can bring it to 15, you can take it to 60 minutes, nothing needed. I won't say I'm the best at following that advice, but at least I have it written somewhere to where I try and acknowledge.
I wish we had an hour to talk about all the things that did go wrong, because that would be a good one. Thinking about so many things. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I showed up to a 15-minute presentation, and then they were like, this is 60 minutes, right? And I was like, I didn't get the memo on that. And I had nothing to go. It's the most embarrassing. It was recorded too. It's the most embarrassing talk I've ever had in my entire life.
That is funny. I'm laughing at you, by the way. I'm laughing with you.
Yeah, thanks. The horror stories that we have. Oh gosh, so embarrassing.
Talk on that.
Yeah, that would be a good
3 books.
That'd be good. That'd be amazing. One of the things that we as in Confessions of an Implementer, Confessions of a Vistage Chair, one thing that we've realized that a lot of these amazing humans want to learn more about is like the tactics that go into growing practice, growing personal brand, growing those things. Your background in this speaking and the things that you've done, like, what does that look like practically? Because there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I could be a speaker. I want to go be a speaker. What to grow your personal brand and get booked? Like, how does someone even get started in that arena?
That's a great question too. You're good at this, Ryan. So, it's interesting because I was actually coaching somebody recently about perhaps becoming a chair, and they have zero experience ever being in front of a room, ever. Like nothing ever. And I can think back, it really, it started way back for me, not realizing I'd be coaching CEOs, right? And working with CEOs to this day. Nor did I realize when I got my coaching certification and training that just to be a better manager and leader, that I was going to be coaching CEOs, right? But I'll tell you, way back when, I taught just about every fitness certification. I have every fitness certification there is except for Pilates, because I was paying my way through college. And that was another way I could make extra money to pay for books and school and food, etc. And so I was in front of a spinning class. I was a personal trainer. I was in front of a body pump and aerobics. And I tried yoga, but I'm too hyper for it.
Yeah.
So I have that one too. But I stuck I started spinning for 26 years, right? So getting in front of a room and with love, I say command the audience, but connect with the audience. You can't be up here, although we are up on a pedestal on this platform with the bike up here when I'm teaching spinning. At the end of the day, you have to be able to meet your audience where they're at, right? It goes back to whether you're in a boardroom or whether you're in a spinning room. So those were things that helped. Other things that helped was when I continued to volunteer for opportunities, like I said, within companies. I also served on 20 plus boards in my career. And I strongly encourage people to do that now, because that puts you at front and center with people, right? Just being able to it also helps you grow your EQ, right? Your awareness and perception and all that. But volunteering for those things and putting myself in those situations were really, really helpful. So it wasn't just about, hey, I'm going to be a public speaker one day. I do remember a trainer that I had years ago when I was in corporate America. And I remember how much respect and how much I appreciated this. It was a lady, because she was a really good trainer, because she always connected with us, even though she was like a peer when it came to experience. She met us where we were at. So whether it's your spinning instructor or whether it was some other situation, at church, volunteer at church, right? So we can all, volunteer for the, your HOA or your PTA or whatever it is putting yourself in those situations where you're in leadership opportunities, because you're always going to grow your skills in those areas. And I believe that's what's actually helped catapult me as well.
One thing that I recently learned the hard way, recently, I guess, relative, probably about a year and a half, I haven't been in business. I came out of the murder mystery business of all things, and got into business services. Longer story. We'll do it over wine or waters one day. But one of the things that I realized is the thing you just said there, being in the right room. And it took me probably about 6 months of not being in the right room to understand like which room. So when you think about, putting yourself out there and getting in front of the right audience, the right people, like if someone's just getting started, how do they know where to find those right people and that they're not going to things where they're just kind of spinning tires?
Well, I answer from the standpoint of, let's just use business trade associations for an example. Our clients aren't necessarily hanging out at trade associations, not the C-suite, right? They're busy running the business. The next best people that are those business development professionals or other leaders, though, within their companies, and they're hanging out at those associations or going there to learn. So as long as your target market, number one, if it's your target market, that you're networking in those groups, not just because you're looking to meet a CEO per se, but it's your industry, or it's your size of target market, or it's the demographics or geographics, right? So find some things in common as always. I remember when I was part of the chemical, when I was in public accounting for so long, and I was networking in the Chemical Association, the Houston Chemical Association, the Southwest Chemical Association in Houston. And I was the only female there. And at the time, I was the only public accounting firm in the room too. And it was great for me, because every one of those companies there needed a CPA firm too, right? So don't just go where the norm is. Don't just go to all the CPA and account. In fact, I didn't go to any accounting things except for the Internal Auditors Association, right? But that was also to help one of my partners get a speaking opportunity as well. But go where you're going to stand out, challenge yourself, and learn and grow. All right. So as long as you have some synergy in common of either your decision maker, your COI, your sense of influence, or the industry or the size or the target market, then it should be a good place. But go where you can continue to be challenged. Because if you stay, I use the goldfish analogy, I use it with Vistage too. If a goldfish is in a bowl this big, how big is he ever going to get? But if he's in a bowl this big, how big is he going to get, right? So surround yourself and create yourself, really the environment is what I'm talking about, so that you can continue to grow and be challenged and be vulnerable enough to recognize that you don't know everything and you're always open to learning from those around you. Now, the other thing that I don't know where I got this from. This is a really good question I'll have to think about, but asking myself, how do you know what you need? How do we know you don't know? That's the hard part, right? And how do you know what you need to grow in? And yes, if you're vulnerable enough to ask for that feedback, people will give it to you. But you also have to be sensitive enough not to take it too personal and know that it's only going to make you better. And that's a hard balance, especially for me as a people pleaser. I remember my first manager role in my early 20s, because I'd already been working a decade. And I had a boss tell me, Christine, if you can't get those people to do what we need them to do, I don't need you. And I realized I was sugarcoating everything that I was doing with those managers and leaders because I was worried about them liking me. And of course, I since read books and learned from other great professionals and successful people. You have to be respected. If you're respected and you're teaching them and helping them grow and challenging them, they will like you at the end of the day. But if you're just going for them to like you, they won't respect you and they're not going to do what you need them to do. Right?
Yep.
So there's lessons along the way. There's a lot of failures I had, but I was always willing to open to learn and listen and grow. I still am. I'm still learning and growing.
I love it. All right, quick break, friends. Do you find it impossible to hire and retain top sales talent? Or worse, are you paying insane recruiter fees who are all using outdated hiring processes? Yeah, I was too. At Hunt to Killer, we were spending hundreds of thousands on recruiter agency fees. And after I sold that company in 2025, I started Talent Harbor. And the whole vision here was to make sales recruiting accessible to small and medium-sized businesses, because the organizations that can hire and retain world-class people are the ones that ultimately win. Most organizations rely on things like ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn, and they get hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes. But we find that the best salespeople are already perfectly placed somewhere else. And that's why our approach is to go after them. And we do that through a business model called recruiting as a service. We do not charge commissions. We do not have success fees. We don't have contracts. We don't have long-term engagements. And we become an extension of your team as expert sales recruiters. If you're tired of the same old recruiters and want to actually grow your sales team, check us out at talentharbor.com. That's Talent Harbor, TALENTHARBOR.com. Let's get your next sales superstar hired. So I've been in the Navy for the last 25 years, and like the military in general is known as a little rough and gruff, and like leadership is mostly screaming. I tell you, it's not anymore. It's probably a bad rap or brand that's developed over hundreds of years. It has evolved, even in my time over the last couple of decades, it's evolved quite a bit. When people think about manager and like need you to get stuff done through them, and how do you balance that, like not becoming the military-esque, like this is what you need to do and I need you to do this now or else, versus like getting them to do the things, and it's not about liking you, but getting to do the things out of respect?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, you have to meet them where they're at, right? You have to meet them where they're at. Put yourself in their shoes. Meet them where they're at and recognize what skill sets they have and what skill sets they don't have, and be willing to get in their shoes or in the trenches with them, to shadow them shadow you, and do what it takes. A lot of people, and what you just said, I hear a lot, several companies and people in those leadership teams that I'm pleasured and honored to work with, and I'm still coaching on this area. It's not enough to just tell people, go do this or go do that. If it was that easy, everybody would have a business, right? We'd have no problems with people, right? People are some of the biggest problems. But it's the easiest one to solve. I remember when I acquired a sales team, a strategic sales director for a company, and I was running a call center. And I was told when I first was hired to get rid of this one person. There's a couple people, but this one particular young lady. These team members were supposed to make 100 calls a day, make 3 to 5 appointments a day for our financial executives, people our age at the time, more experienced and educated people, to go meet with banks and credit unions, presidents of banks and credit unions, so that we could sell our overdraft privilege programs to banks and credit unions. This young lady was making well over 100 calls a day, but not being successful in getting any appointments scheduled. And the first thing I said, well, I'm not firing anybody until I work with them. That's the first thing. So I shadowed her. She shadowed me. They were on the bullpen. I actually did have a closed door office. It was always open, but I had her come in my office, made phone calls. She shadowed me. I shadowed her. I did it at her desk. She ended up with me within 2 months. I use this story all the time. She was my top salesperson and was till I left there. We've kept in touch. She actually ended up working for several of my clients. My husband's company at one time works for another one of my clients now. And we've known this person for over 20 years now. If I would have just fired her, she would have left in sales, maybe hurt her ego so much that she never looked up. And her confidence now, I actually, with my coaching and trust, she's now in outside business development, right, in sales, and she is wildly successful. And so we should believe in everybody where they're at, believe in them. Our job as leaders and managers to help them be successful. What do they need from us? And the number one thing they need from us is more time and more coaching, and not just telling them to do it. Trust me, if we could just hire BD people or salespeople and say, go do it, they would have done it.
Yep.
right? And we said, go do it. They're like, well, I'm doing it. And I'm like, no, you're not doing it. You're not bringing more sales in. I don't care if you have to get in the trenches and handhold them or not, or take them with you. I just go talking to a CEO the other day too about somebody in another state that he's expecting that person is leading that location, that branch, to get his people to go do BD and sales. And then that manager's not doing what he needs to do as well. And I was telling him, I like, you need to have him come here and shadow you because expect him to be him there. He'll find his idiosyncrasies, his strengths, and what makes him successful. But you can't just tell people to go do it. If it was that easy, we would have already done it. Just like there's enough books now, but we didn't all know what it was like to be mothers and fathers or spouse or, wives or husbands. We have to learn as we go. But the best thing we can do is empower our people, and empowering them is not just telling them. It's showing them and giving them all the skills and training and coaching and belief and confidence that they need that they lack.
And if you've got maybe a young manager and maybe the organization is developing them, but they don't have that skill set to, let's say it's a sales leader or sales manager and they were newly promoted. Like, do you think about this as like, well, then that person was promoted into a role in which they weren't ready for? Or is it like, no, like have them bring somebody, an external agency, someone that knows sales training to like help develop the team while you're developing them? I guess the easier question is like, for someone that has no experience in this, what's the easiest way for them to like dip their toes in?
Are you talking about BD specifically?
Well, I mean, we were already there. I mean, it could apply across anything, but
we'll use BD as an example because everybody needs it, right? Everybody, when you call it sales and business development, I believe you can take your business development skills, by the way, use it in sales for products mostly, right? But I think it's hard to take the skills of selling products and transfer it to service. You can easily take business development because it's all about building relationships, which is all about building trust and rapport, right? And then they're going to buy from who they like. You wouldn't be at the table if you couldn't do the job, so to speak. But at the end of the day, when it comes to business development, people ask all the time, or we talk about all the time. And by the way, I don't have all the answers. I'm just sharing example experiences here. So, but people do ask. So, if I could hire a BD person to be successful, what does that look like? What are the top 2 or 3 things I should think about? I said, well, first of all, do they have industry experience in your industry? Second of all, do they have the right contacts in your industry? Like if you want to talk to the CEOs, the CEOs, or you want to talk to CFOs, do they have the right contacts? Okay. And COIs too, right? And then thirdly, do they have business development experience, a track record of experience? And if not, guess what? You're going to have to train them on all 3. They're going to learn on your dime and your time, right? So, but if you have somebody, like you could take somebody like me and put me into legal, I was in accounting, you put me in financial reporting, not because I know all that, right? But I know enough to be dangerous, but I know how to do business development. I have the contacts and I basically have industry experience because of this triangle, if nothing else, CPAs, attorney, triangle, the trusted advisors. So you could easily teach them, but it's going to take more time on your dime, right? Yep. And so how much are we actually, helping people when we say, just go to this training or go to that training? Yes, you need to learn how to ask clarifying questions and needs analysis. Yes, you need to not, just show up and do your dog and pony show, right? And just, tell them all your features and benefits. You have to get to know them first and then provide the solution based on what they said on all that. You have to be able to connect. But if you have those first 3 things, that you're going to be more successful quicker and easier. If you don't have those 3 things, find the person, like we kind of started with, that has the grit or the resilience and the attitude that wants to learn and grow and never stop, because you can teach them everything else.
I love that. And I wrote down, what did I write? Pay more to train less. So one thing that we see a lot of folks get tripped up on is when we're going through either comp studies or like putting together some sort of comp plan jointly, and organizations, because we focus on sales roles as well, and organizations want to invest as little as possible to keep their costs down. They want to make as much money as possible. And we have to have this conversation all the time where it's like, if you pay more, the results, like the ROI will be greater based upon the money that you're investing. Obviously, there's a lot of like nuance, like it has to be the right person. You have to be able to vet. All of those things still have to be true. But I love what you just said right there, because it's like, if they don't have one, if they don't have two, if they don't have three, like those are the things you're now going to have to invest in alongside of whatever you're already paying from a compensation standpoint.
It's a catch-22 because if you have a business development or sales professional that does have the experience, does have the contacts, and does have the drive, and loves that role, like personality, right, rise, and all that, then they ideally should be more successful. But they're also the easiest to sell themselves to the C-suite decision maker that's hiring them, right? And so the challenge is do we bring, or do they bring, bad habits? And are they still coachable, right? Just like a CEO being coachable in Vistage, are they coachable? Because those traits, their skill sets or best practices they had over here may not work over here. And so they still have to be coachable and nimble enough, as you know, because you work with these people like that too. As long as we're called coachable, then it's okay. But otherwise, if they're just set in their mind that, oh, I got this, then they may not be successful just because there's some things that are idiosyncrasies with that industry or that, client or that situation, right?
It's so fun. I didn't even realize we were going to go down this path. What's so interesting about this is typically when someone comes to us, it's because they have a track record in hiring the wrong person. And they're like, because great salespeople are great at selling themselves.
That's right.
To your point, it doesn't mean that they're going to be great at selling your product or service. And so typically what they come to us and they're like, great, your vetting program, everything else, but like, I need a buffer because I'm constantly getting sold to. I think this is the right person. We bring them on. And so obviously we provide that vetting buffer, but 100%. And there's a lot of ways to make mistakes in the BD environment for sure.
Well, just on what you're saying, like what tools and reassessments, right? Tests, whatever you want to call them, but assessments really help you figure out what do you really have. You see me in person, right? You see me on paper, but how am I really wired on the inside?
Yeah. We haven't gone down the sales training part. We've got a lot of partners. And what's interesting is like when we talk to those partners, they're like, our sales cycle is so long and it's so hard for us to sell it, because business leaders, like what we have found is once they find the right person, they're like, this is the right person. They're going to go do amazing things. And they don't need the infrastructure, the ongoing training, the resources to be able to supply. But I agree, like the assessments, OMG is one of the industry leading assessments. Mm-hmm. It is not cheap. And so if you want to run that assessment through your entire organization, like it's worth it, but it's a significant investment for the enterprise.
But especially for a sales organization specifically, right? I mean, it's worth the investment, like you said, 100%.
Okay. All right. I'll take us off of the BD stuff. I do too. I just, and I've got like a whole page of notes on this. So let's talk a little bit. One of the things, I don't think this is a touchy subject, but like one of the things that I've realized kind of navigating both of these ecosystems, EOS and Vistage, is that sometimes there's some misunderstanding over the value that each provides and like almost like a competitive nature. And I've been on the other side of this where I was in a Vistage. Well, I mean, I still am. But my last company, we had an expert implementer and we had Vistage for the entire leadership team. And so I had never reconciled this idea that like there was any competition. I guess like, how do you see it? Because you're both of them. So like, how do you reconcile this and see it?
Yeah, well, let me answer it by saying first and foremost, when I launched my first CEO Vistage group 16 years ago, I was coached. Christine, you should probably give everybody, when you launch your first CEO group, give everybody a copy of the book Traction. Okay. And I wasn't traction anything yet. I was doing strategic planning already for 20 years though. Okay. But I wasn't doing it through the EOS system or tools because that had only been out a year or two. So I said, well, note to self, I probably should read the book first before I give it to a bunch of CEOs. So I read the book and I went, OMG, this is like the easiest way to implement strategic planning compared to the ways I was taught from consulting days of doing strategic planning, create these lofty plans, and do they even get implemented, right? And so, and then we're like 6 or 8 months later, I launched the group is doing great. Still my first board group. I love the group. I lost a member in that group because he chose to spend the dollars on EOS on an implementer and do EOS instead of spending it, stay in my group in Vistage. And I thought, note to self, that'll never happen if I can't help it, right?
Yep.
So I decided to go through the training, number one, because I also was still trying to use the tools on my own, but the unpure way, now using the pure way. And I also did that because what I found is a lot of the Vistage members needed that help.
Mm-hmm.
They needed help with strategic planning all the way down to the lowest employee. And at the same token, I thought, you know what? The whole reason I went into this to begin with, because I was already strategic planning anyway, but doing EOS, was I offer all Vistage members a discount, but they have to stay in Vistage. Whether it's my group or another group, by the way. It's not even about whether I was trying to retain them from my group, because I don't talk EOS at all to them when I'm their chair. I'm their chair first and foremost. If they bring up EOS, they can talk about it, but I'm not there to talk EOS. So in the Vistage room, but I told them, some other chairs know this, I don't really say it much, but I never want them to choose over EOS over Vistage, to get back to your question, because they are completely two different values. EOS is specifically, EOS won't like me saying this, but it's strategic planning on steroids. Okay. Gina was brilliant to take all these best practices from these speakers and authors and business consultants that were great and successful. Some of them are still around today, and some of our legacies will be with us even though they're not here anymore. And create those tools that we needed to create strategic planning, get a leadership team on the same page, be the leadership team that company deserves, right, and requires, and to get in strategic planning all the way down to the lowest employee. That's what EOS is all about. To get everybody on the same page, heading in the same direction, beating the same drum. You heard me say this before, and other people have too. Vistage is really taking each individual person and giving them a forum and an environment for them to grow and develop as a leader and a manager. Now, EOS still has some tools for that too, but all the tools aren't just for the leader and manager. A lot of them are for the company to grow and scale, right? In fact, half of EOS is growing your leader as a manager, and half of it is scaling the business. But Vistage particularly is surrounding yourself by other people, smarter and more successful than you, that made decisions, good and bad, and learning from them, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And number two, it's really growing you. We talk about hitting the ceiling all the time. You can hit the ceiling as an individual, as a department, as in a company. A company doesn't hit the ceiling by accident. It's because the people aren't growing. Vistage really is a platform for individual development and growth. And then it's the environment to help that person, whether it's a CEO or leadership team member, step up and be the leader they need to make so they can look at their business differently and make better decisions that helps that business be more successful. That's really what it boils down to. I didn't make this up. There's another quote. I forgot who to give it credit to, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. Yep. That's what it boils down to. And there's a few tools in the EOS system, like LMA, Lead Managed Accountability, right? The Delegate and Elevate tool, right? There's tools in EOS that will help leaders and managers grow. Vistage is like in an MBA overnight. That's how I say it anyway.
Love it.